Riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans backed by definite desires through constant persistence.
What is up, champions? Welcome to another episode of Champion Champion Weeds, where we talk about best-selling books and their best principles to help you out with your best life. I am your host, Coach Willie Blake. I'm here also with my co-host, Ian Sturmer, and the founder of Champion Circle, John Kovacs Jr. And today is a very special episode because we don't have a new book for you. We have 3 old books. That's right, because today we're doing a Rotten Tomatoes review episode. Woo! Confetti on the side. I don't know how to do that in the whole things here. Charlotte would probably prep for that, but woo! Confetti on the side. Let's go. Oh, well, can I do that? Or is that just your Apple product?
Apple.
Sorry, and this episode is brought to you by Apple today. No, kid, we're excited. Over the last, from the last Rotten Tomatoes that we did, we have done 3 more books since then. And we thought instead of just having, because we had a lot of fun during that episode, we thought we'll do a mini series where about every quarter we go through 3 books. We go back to them and rate them so that by the time the next big one comes, then we still remember it and still have a good idea about it. So for this one, we're doing the last 3 books that we discussed, which are bada bing, bada bing, bada boom. These 3, we have The Underdog Advantage by Dean Graziosi. We have Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley, and we have The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. These were 3 books. That was it. These are 3 books. That's it. Boom. There we go. This is another episode of Champion Reads. 3 books that we enjoyed, had some good episodes with, as well as some things that, as Rotten Tomatoes are, some things we just didn't like. So let's just jump into the first one of The Underdog Advantage. This is a book that I picked out myself. So I'm to do because this one helped me out when I was first getting to know like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. So I'm actually going to throw it to John and Ian first to rate this and how it's going to look like for you listeners who didn't watch the big one that we did. We're going to give it a rating. Now we can do it our preference. We can give the rating at the beginning or at the end, but we're going to be truthfully honest in how we think the book is. And yeah, we'll just go from there. So John or Ian, what's your rating? What's your description? Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, backed by popular demand, aka I was like, guys, we should do that more often. Like, let's do it again. I'm really, really excited about this. I'm a big Dean Graziosi fan. He's one of the most brilliant minds of our modern day. He's just incredible. I mean, I put him up there with the Malcolm Gladwells, the Seth Godins. This guy is incredible. And he's on the rise, and he's so relatable. And my score is based off of a couple things. It's based off of relatability, storytelling, his anecdotes or examples, as well as how inspiring it was. Mostly because I'm a self-help book junkie. I read all of them, and I love to just dissect these things. Plus, who doesn't like a good old underdog story? But for me, I'll keep it simple for everyone. I truly thought it was better than most, better than average, and it really brings me to a whopping score of 8.3. And you wonder, John, where do you come up with the 0.3? Well, I already scored certain books at 8.5. And if that's kind of like my upper tier standard, I rate Underdog Advantage just slightly lower in that upper tier section for myself, because while I prefer the relatability and the storytelling, I thought the examples were kind of the same over and over again, and I wanted like new applicable material, which kind of brought the score down from a 100% for me. But that still ranks it in some of my top rated books, and just a great, great treat. I really enjoyed it. Dean, if you're listening, I love your book. I think it was something that every entrepreneur should read, because rather than discussing the applications of business entrepreneurship and grit, you talk about the mindset behind being the small guy, the guy who can use their superpowers, even if the world deems them as deficits. And I love that. And I'm just a big fan of that concept, and I appreciate him doing such a great job at bringing this concept into the world. So 8.3, guys, what do you got?
Okay, I love that you just talked about the difference between the nitty gritty specifics of how you do this versus the mindset idea, because maybe I was just looking for the nitty gritty in this, and I actually docked at a point because it didn't have enough of the nitty gritty, and it was more about the mindsets, which is a valuable thing, but we also see so many things based on the mindset that part of it got lost in me. And throughout this whole thing, every time we talked about this book, I had Rocky written in big letters at the top of my page, because the movie Rocky is like the ultimate underdog and there's so much in it, and I never got to talk about it. So go watch the movie Rocky and think about this book. But having said that, I gave it a 7. And the reason for the 7 is I like the storytelling. I'm someone who loves examples. I love seeing that in there. I loved how it gave me some confidence in what I'm doing as far as the startup idea. And I think that's very valuable to say, don't worry, go out there and do it. You can make it. Here's some ideas of other people that did that. But it didn't really tell me how to do it. And honestly, I had to stop and really go back and think about what I learned in this book. And we all read a lot of books here, and it's hard to keep them all in our mind. But I docked at a point because it didn't stick in my mind a month later or 2 months later, other than a couple little examples. And I think, honestly, the examples I remembered are ones I thought of in this discussion more than the ones he actually wrote in it. So I love the mindset idea, the mentality, the encouragement to go forward. But I docked it a little bit because it didn't stay with me. And it didn't really give me some of the specifics that I hoped something geared towards real startups would give. So I'm giving it a solid 7, maybe a 7.5 if I want to cut the difference. I didn't know we could do decimal points. But if we can do that, I'm going to up it to 7.5 because it's a great book. And I don't want to dock it too much for a few little things that I would have liked to have had.
All right, 7.5. Let's see. For how I would rate this book. Again, this is one of the books that I myself brought in when we were talking about, like, what book should we do next? I'm like, oh, this should be the book. I'll say my rating in a second. What I like about this book is it's a different mindset than what people usually talk about. Because a lot of people talk about that you got to be in the 1%ers. You have to be above everybody else. And if you're not above everybody else, then you're just way behind. You're not going to get anywhere. But Dean comes in and is just like, no, you being at the bottom, you being undervalued and the underdog is actually one of the biggest advantages that you have. Because ain't nobody looking at you. And as you go on, once you get that momentum and people start looking at you, you already have it and get up there. And I love the story that Dean tells in here when he goes to, I believe it's a mastermind by, I'm forgetting the name. Mastermind, but people were there like Lewis Howes and Tom Bilyeu and individuals like that, and they were doing this fishing competition to where to where all of them would cast it out, wouldn't catch anything, pull it in, maybe someone would catch a fish or two here, but it was a competition the entire day of doing it. And there were several ponds, and they'd go to each different pond. And so Dean, he would cast it out, realize it wasn't working, so he'd reel it back in and cast it out in a different direction. Then he realized that the fish would go more towards like right before it became like a creek and river, so he'd cast it over there. And then he realized, oh, this bait works better than this bait, and so he would put it over there. And just the way he told his story was great, as well as this mindset of being the underdog is an advantage. And if anybody hears me, I'm always like, dyslexia is my advantage. All of us have challenges, and all of us make an advantage. So I like this book. That being said, with the underdog advantage, it was very repetitive in this thought. So it was giving the example over and over and over and over again, which nailed it down for sure. And because it went over and over and over again, I was expecting more practical application parts of how can this apply into my life specifically. So with that, I personally gave it a 6, which, if you know me on Rotten Tomatoes, apparently I'm just a harsh person. A 6 is pretty decent. That's like my average above average for these scores, because it was a fantastic book. It truly was. And I wish there was more practical application in it. So 6 is my score. John, I know that you did it last time. Would you be the scorekeeper for us?
I already got it. And at the average or the total ranking of 21.8 points, this comes in at an average score of 7.26, which currently, before we actually dive into the other two books, puts this book ranked as our top 5 book read yet. So not bad, not bad. And since Simon Cowell gave it a low score of 6, I'm just kidding. We have a really, really great, just an appreciation for these books, right? You can tell in our voices, like, there's so much more we want to gain from them. And again, these are just opinions. I mean, they come from where we're at in life. I mean, Ian's in the middle of a startup right now on top of a bunch of really great things. Like, I'm building a business that I like has a few holes in the ship that I need to patch up. Like, I know that there are things in our lives that lead to our opinions, but I hope you like them, because truly they do. These are awesome books, and you guys have no idea what goes into it. But that being said, check it out. He's ranked 20. He's ranked 5th so far in our book. So good job, Dean. You made our top 5 list.
Heck yeah. Love it. So there we go. 21.8 out of a possible 30 points from the 3 of us go to the underdog advantage. All right, let's move to the next one. Oversubscribed. I think I'm going to go first on this one with oversubscribed. Oversubscribed, it brought a unique twist to thinking, because the first time I read the title, I'm just like, oh, people are going to oversubscribe to my channel, which means I'm overvalued and people are going to see my content and see everything. That's true to part of it, but then he goes more into like how to get people lined up for you as the individual, in the way of other people coming to you rather than you having to do so much advertising, so much marketing for you to get into their minds. A few examples, we think of Amazon. Everybody knows Amazon, but Amazon wasn't here several decades ago. Actually, I think it was even sooner. Maybe I don't know why 2012 is popping on my mind, but possibly this decade. I know another one, Google in September of 1998. If you were born before then, you are older than Google. So that's a recognizable name. But then, like, even restaurant businesses, Texas Roadhouse, where I'm at, one of mine and my wife's favorite places to go for our birthday dinners. rolls, the meat, the everything in there, just fantastic. People line up to get there, and they get there early to get reserved, and you have people standing there for an hour and a half just so they can eat their food. There's a McDonald's and a Wendy's right next to the road. Those places are great as well. We support all fast food joints here, but Texas Roadhouse has people lining up to the door, which is fantastic. So with Oversubscribed, with all the principles in there, I'm giving it a solid 8. It was a solid 8 book for me.
That's awesome. I always like a good psychological mind twist. And for me, the battle with this book was I spent pretty much all 300 pages trying to course correct the word oversubscribed in my brain to mean what it meant. And the reason why was I when I read and hear the word oversubscribed, I immediately go to consumer and I think, oh, we're all too subscribed to so many things, or it came out as a negative. And so I spent the entire time reading this trying to like tattoo over the bad tattoo of oversubscribed is a negative and it should be a positive. And so I really liked the twist in how he used that. I think a lot of us Americans feel like we're oversubscribed on too many things. We're overly engaged in way too many applications, mobile applications, rather than like being subscribed to the right things. But I love that twist, and I love that was one of one of Willie's favorite things. Is like the applications are so valuable, so important. So for me, it was a great book. I rate it what I rate it because I liked the concept. I liked the theory. And like you said, Willie, the applications were pretty awesome. I actually relate this book to another book that I really liked, which was called Launch. And it shared the launch methods. And Oversubscribed had a similar segue when it came to your email lists and connections to those who you can reach and having people line up at the door for your products. And I think that's just very, very powerful. So I gave this book a whopping 7.5. It's up there on my high list. I felt like it really itched the entrepreneurial brain, gave a lot of great application, and the concept was great. The only reason bringing it down was I struggled to understand the concept because it was forcing me to change my mindset on something that I had already pre-subscribed to the definition of oversubscribed. And that's just my score.
Okay. This was a tough one for me. And since we started this, I've already changed my score a couple of times. And I almost want to give it 2 separate scores. And my reason for that is for the right person in the right situation, this is an incredible book. But I'm looking at a situation where I'm a bare startup. It's like, okay, I'm worried about getting a subscriber before I'm worried about oversubscribing. How do I get to that one? Which is how we picked our last book, was my frustration with this idea. So the concepts in the book are great. I love that. To me, it kind of came down a lot to the idea of scarcity mentality and how to use that to grow your business. And as long as you've got people who want it, it's great to build a scarcity mentality. But if you don't have anyone at all lined up yet, it doesn't matter. You can't do less than 0. So how do you apply it in there? I hate to compare books because there's some differences. This reminded me a lot of $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi, which I found to be a little bit more practical in my sense because it taught me how to build that list a little bit better than what Oversubscribed did. I initially gave it a 5 and an 8. 5 for me because there were nice things and I want to get there. And I was annoyed that I wasn't where I should be to read this book. and I wanted to be where I should be to read this book, and an 8 because if I was where I should be to read this book, I would have been able to take great advantage of it. So I actually moved it to a 7 because in the end, there's great information here and there's great strategies that were I doing better at my business right now or further along in it would be very helpful. So I don't want to dock it because I'm not a good reader as opposed to this not a good book. But if you're not in the right position, it's just going to frustrate you and you're going to think it's useless. But if you're in that position, it is going to be very valuable. So I'm going to stick with a 7.
Yeah, very relatable because that was one of the things, like, I'm not going to dock it points for my inability to catch up with where I should be or it needs to be. It was a beautiful concept. So that being said, Ian, Willie, the total score on this book comes to a 22.5. That is our total rating. That brings us to an average of 7.5 per rating, which actually bumps Mr. Dean Graziosi's book down one because we have a new 5th place qualifier. Oversubscribed takes the 5th space in our ranking system, which is pretty awesome. So can't wait to see what the lean starter targeting. But 22.5 is our total score there.
Boom. There you have it. 22.5 for oversubscribed, 21.8 for the underdog advantage. Now let's go to the lean startup. The lean startup. I'm actually going to ask Ian if you'd start this one with ranking it.
Yes, love to. This is one that I picked when I asked ChatGPT what book I should read to go from 0 to 1 in the startup idea. And this is the first book that popped up. And when I threw it out, you guys said, yes, that's a great book. We should read it. I was looking for really, I've got the concept. I've got a business. Now I need to get a customer. How do I get my first customer? I'm not worried about getting my millionth customer yet. Hopeful, but not worried yet. So I started reading this. I was a little bit disappointed. And again, this is maybe more me because I don't have a good concept of the lean methodology, which would have helped reading this book. Because I was thinking lean meant just, bootstrapping it. But there's a whole lean methodology out there. And I have just a very vague idea. But I loved how it took lean methodology from like manufacturing and put it into kind of an IT was his bigger focus of businesses. And he brought a lot of other examples in there. This one hit a couple of concepts that were just drilled to the core of my brain and are cemented in there right now. And in my conversations with my startup right now, they're sick of me saying, okay, this book I just read talks about this. We need to focus on this. We need to bring this in. I'm going to have to reread this a couple of times because I know I was so overwhelmed by how great a couple of concepts were that I'm sure I missed some things later on. So my score is actually an 8.5. I was going to go a 9, but I thought, I need to save 9 and above for something which is just absolutely incredible. So I try to make it a little more realistic. So 8.5, and the biggest one is when I'm going from 0 to 1, the concept of minimum viable product, which is not unique to him, but he explained it so well and brought it out so clearly for me. That became just a central core and realization importance of what I'm doing. So I was able to apply this very directly, concretely, and exactly, at least a couple of these concepts now. So as far as practical, changing my life, this is up there. So 8.5.
Awesome. 8.5. With this book, as I went into it, there were several things that came up to me because I respect the framework that Eric goes into with this. Like, I highly respect it because it lines up a lot with what I call my GPS method, which in Reese's terms is more like build, measure, learn, which is know what you're doing and where you want to go, and then adapt to it afterwards. So it's the same thing of like reverse engineer it and then be able to, as you're driving that car, putting your foot on the gas of action taking, being able to adjust and adapt to it. So it's kind of like the same DNA that goes into some methods. However, the same point, the going with that, I'm taking a few points off simply because of this is really only practical for people who are kind of in a startup or in like the tech bubble, and not really versatile to every person who would read this book. And so it's more of like, I respect this book, and I would have to translate it for you if you weren't in that startup or tech type industry bubble. So I'm going to throw it into the realm of 7.2 because I want to be unique today as well. 7.2 is where I would throw the Lean Startup.
Oh, this is exciting, guys. This is great. I couldn't have seen this coming. Well, in the spirit of Lean Startup, we're talking about trimming the fat and keeping things very, very healthy. Well, this book is exactly as it reads. Like you can't know what's on the inside, but you can feel what's on the inside based on the name. So that's a huge bonus for me. When the name leads to the content and the content is exactly as prescribed, that's a good point for me. Also, one of the things I loved is staying in the same branding and vein of being lean. This book has zero fluff. There's something that we do on this podcast where we pull quotes and memorable thoughts from each of the books that we can use as introductions and to attract people when they're listening and flipping through podcasts. We couldn't do that with this book. There were no quotes. There was no fluff. It was all application. It was all lessons. And I loved that about this book. And also, one of the things that's unique about that is innovation is a crazy word because it reminds us of creativity, of pulling things from the stars and making things happen. I mean, talk about underdogs. They've got to innovate to win. They got to be bigger, better, stronger without being bigger, better, and stronger. And this book details innovation in a lean way, which is kind of an oxymoron, if you ask me, because you can't really be innovative when you've got to cut fat, right? But he proved us wrong. And I loved that about this book. And also, I just wanted to give it some style points. The book is literally in front of me, and I like a good cover with like, I don't know how to describe it, but when it's embossed, where it's like it comes off of the page, it's kind of painted on or stamped on.
It's like
very well.
Bubble text or something.
What's that?
Bubble text?
Maybe, yeah, bubble text. It's kind of stamped on so that it has texture, and I love that about a book. I love that, and I understand that as a publishing author myself. I know that there's a lot that goes into that, so this book was well spent. However, that brings me to my conclusion, which is as applicable as the book was, I guess I like fluff because I wanted the feel goods. I also got lost in the applications, and I felt like, man, I really need to have my ballpoint pen out to take notes every single time I read because there was just no fat around this thing. I went to the yoga studio and I felt like I was the 1,000-pound Snorlax in the room with a bunch of bodybuilding 0% fatters. And that was a good comparison for me to realize, I have a lot to learn as an entrepreneur. So that brings me to my score of this book, which brings it to a whopping 7.5. I know that's my average, but I really like this book. I give it a huge tip of the hat and just a congratulations. So if you do the math, 7.5 for myself, 7.2 from Willie, and Ian, an 8.5. This book has a total of 23.2 score points, which brings it to an average of a 7.73, which takes us to our top 3 ranked book. Can you believe that? The Lean Startup is one of our top 3 favorite books. And I'll talk some statistics in just a second, but wow, like it totally ranks up there. It is a great book. And despite all the semantics of words, we're trying to trick our listeners into thinking, is it going to be high? Is it going to be low? Is it going to be mid? We want you to know that these books do come through our desks as really, really great books. Otherwise, we wouldn't read them in the first place. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to respond to that before I go through a few statistics as a whole from our scoring here. But I'd love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah. That's one of the challenges here. I mean, if we ranked a book at a 2 in this podcast for how we thought about it, if we put that into all of the business books out there, it's probably still above a 9 because we're only looking at the best of the best. It's like, which Rolls Royce model is the top 3? Well, the worst one is still way better than the best Yugo. So we got to put that in perspective. So if you look at these and say, why are you reviewing books that are only a 7? Shouldn't you be reviewing books that are 9s and 10s? Well, they're 9s and 10s and 11s and 15s on a scale of 1 to 10 in the greater scheme of things. And I feel kind of bad with that. And I'm realizing also so much of this is subjective as we look back into where are we right now. And I think that came out in this episode a lot more. This book would be great if I was. Instead of, it didn't appeal to me because I wasn't. But, that's part of what the books are. And I hope that helps people listening to say, oh, well, I am in that place. So I do need to look at that book, even though it might have got a little bit lower score. So we need to take all of these and put them into our own perspective. And as our listeners, put it into your perspective of where you are. And hopefully our comments help out with that. And last but not least, next time we do this, I'm going to start having another decimal point because we're all getting into the 0.5s and the 0.2s. I might have like a 7.2573 just to throw it up there,
Just
okay.
Whatever helps it rank higher or lower.
Okay, yeah, because we are very good at math here on this podcast, so we absolutely can do that. Second, what Ian says, it truly is like with the books that we do. They're the top books. They're books that we want to read. These aren't books that are just like, oh, we went to the shop or the little cool mailbox things that are like all over the place now and just grabbing a random book. No, these are books that were picked out, and these are top books. These are best sellers, and they're teaching best principles to help you guys out with you champions with your best lives. And so any rating that we give these books are truly showing in comparison with the best of the best, and that each of them truly are above. They're like 70% upwards of all the books that we do here. And then at the same time, we're different. Like, this is our ratings. This isn't just like the general populist Rotten Tomatoes. No, this is our ratings. John apparently likes a little bit more fluff in it, and that's awesome. Ian wants to make sure it makes sense and applies to his life. I love the logistical side and like the practical application of everything. So it's just like, it all depends on what we love doing. And so with all these books that we do, yeah, it's incredible that we get to have our own opinions about it. You as champions and listeners, you get to have your own opinions about it. And as we continue to move forward with it, they're just really great books. And if you're just reading, if you're just learning and you're educating, that's truly what's truly what matters.
Yeah. And I'll just add one last thing. And, congratulations, authors. You just got our opinions. I'm sure they're thrilled about that. In their own eyes, they're looking for 5 stars, and here we are just like pulling them apart. But in all reality, like, these are just opinions. And, we hope that the audience recognizes that. But in the light of, sharing highs and lows, the lowest score given by John Kovac Jr. has thus been only a 5. So that was Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. However, Ian, the lowest score you've given is a 3, and that was to my friend, Mr. Brendan Burchard on High Performance Habits. That was good. I like that. That bumped the book a little bit. And then Willie, you as well have a low score rating of 3. Actually, I think it was 3.5 is the lowest you've gone on How I Built This with Guy Raz. And again, just poking fun at this. We compare them to the best of the best. These are books that were recommended to us. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Barnes and Noble's at the door, and they're saying, hey, here's another best-selling book. Come take a look at this. And we're like, okay. Or sometimes they're recommended to us because literally Ian does a Google search saying, hey, what book should we read regarding this topic? And so that's just where it lies. And I'm grateful for this process. I love these episodes. These are so fun. I don't get to share my opinion often because of, I just don't want to get in trouble. And this is a lot of fun. So I appreciate you guys having me on the show and allowing me to keep score. And here we go. I can't wait for the next one. But hey, one last question or one last thought is these were pretty high books. The last 3 books, they were in our top 6, top 5, and top 3. Those were 3 incredible books that rank up and according to us in the entrepreneurial world. So go and give them a read. Go grab them on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever you find these books, and tell us what you think.
Yeah, I just got to say real quick, High Performance Habits was my lowest scoring one on here. But if I'm putting my review on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, it's a 5-star book. Okay, totally. Don't get me wrong. It is a 5-star book, but of all the 5-star books, it's a 3-star out of that category. But of all the books out there and the value in it, it's still a 5-star book. It's just in relation to the cream of the cream of the cream that we're looking at. So if Brandon's listening to me, that's my...
You heard it here, folks. Ian Sturmer is the Simon Cowell of this episode of this series. No, I'm joking. There we go. Those are 3 books that we have gone into. And as I bring it up to the stage, we have 21.8 for Underdog Advantage, oversubscribed 22.5, and 23.2 for the Lean Startup. Very high scores, awesome books. For you listeners, make sure to go check out those books that are relating to you. If you're looking for a new book, boom, there are 3 books for you. And with that, my friends, my champions, that is this episode of Champion Reads. If you found inspiration in it, subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, as well as go to our webpage, mychampionscircle.com, where you'll have the link to other Rotten Tomatoes episodes of our podcast, link to our socials, and everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. Until next time, champions, continue to be the best version of yourself. Be the champion in your own lives. And always remember, you can have an opinion with whatever you have. Just make sure you're being educated. We'll see you on the next episode of Champion Reads.